Hello everyone, this is Joe Brewer here at Bioparque Moncora in Barre Char, Colombia, where we're building this food forest project. And today I want to show you how we have taken a native tree and we're using it to increase water retention and to create shade for our retention pond. And before I show you where the tree is, let me just show you again, this is our retention pond, which we dug by hand. Water comes in from this trail from the road when there's rain, and it fills in, and this purpose of this pond is to retain water in the ground. So water comes in and then absorbs into the ground. The purpose is not to have water sitting at the surface that we could take a bucket and collect it. It's to have it absorb and infiltrate and then be held in the root structures of the plants and in the groundwater supply. And today we took a very important native tree called Aro. It's A-R-O. It's the local name of a tree here that the indigenous peoples throughout this northern part of the Andes say that this is a tree that is used for protecting and holding water in the ground. Now, in a contemporary biological science perspective, it's because this tree forms deep roots. And as the roots go deep, it helps to pump water down into the ground because the water can move down with the roots, and also to pump it up into the body of the tree, creating a circulation vertically from the total length of the tree. And so what I did is I took one of these Aro trees that's in another part of the bioparque, and I took a machete and I cut off one of its branches. And then I put that branch, which was only about a foot long, I put it into a jar of water with some honey in a shaded place in our kitchen for about a month and a half. And as I did this, it started to stimulate the growth of roots. And then I transplanted it into a small black bag with some potting soil that had come from our compost projects. And we let it grow a little bit, and it grew these beautiful leaves right here. And this is our Aro tree. And what I want to show you is we planted this Aro tree in a place in our retention pond to help bring water into the ground. And you can see that here is the Aro tree right there. And I've set it down where basically where the roots are now is at about the top of where the water comes in during the rain, half of the vertical distance from the bottom of the pond to the top. And the idea is that in this retention pond, we're going to plant 15 to 20 of these Aro trees around this middle section of the pond so that over time they will grow vertically and create shade to help hold the water here so it doesn't evaporate. But also their roots will create a penetration pathway for the water to go down and create a vertical circulation through the trees. And so we're doing that with a native tree called Aro. We've planted our first one. We have about half a dozen others. I have 2 of them over here in bags and 3 more at the house that have been cut into these branches and are stimulating root growth or are growing roots and leaves at the moment. But I wanted to show you is how this space was prepared. So that basically we've dug a hole where as we pulled the dirt out, we made a little rim. So it's shaped like a bowl. We took this acacia magnum leaves. We put some of them below the plant and then put the plant with its potting soil and its roots above it. And then put more of this acacia magnum here to make a mulch. So we're using this tree that is really well known for chop and drop. You can cut off the branches and leaves and help produce soil. Partly because they break down to make mycelium networks and help build the soils. So it's really good to have them here for mulch so that when it rains, the water stays here and it doesn't evaporate because there's a surface to cover it. And as they decompose, they will add some carbon to the soil and add nitrogen because of the decomposition that is involving microorganisms and mycelium. And we did all this in the shape of a bowl so that water that runs down the hill during the rain or just falls directly into it will bowl up and collect here and absorb into the ground, helping to stimulate that vertical penetration of the roots into the ground. Now, if you imagine, as I step out here and look at the shape of the retention pond, so let's look at it from a little bit further away, you can see that it's this big, round, elliptical area, kind of shaped like an amoeba. And we planted the tree right down there in the middle of it, and we're going to make a ring of them. So our plan is to plant between 10 and 20 of these Aro trees around this retention pond so that it'll attract the birds and give them a place to sit and scout around for insects to eat and the other sort of niche forming parts of the ecosystem. Although its primary purpose is to plant the water, to bring the water into the ground with its root systems. And while this is the first one that we've done, our plan is to do a lot more. And I wanted to show you this part because this is a way that having knowledge of traditional practices and native local plants can help us know how those plants can serve key ecological restoration functions. And in this case, the Aro tree is going to help us to put the moisture into the ground and restore the water supply, the groundwater supply, which is then going to increase the circulation of water through all of the other plants that grow around this retention pond. So you can see it here. Just imagine the water comes in and fills it part way, and then it absorbs into the ground. But there are going to be these tree roots and various other kinds of bushes and shrubs that will eventually grow here. And they together will help bring the water into the ground and hold it there. And I wanted to show you this so you can see a little bit more in detail how we're going about doing this. And so I hope that this little teach-in, this little lesson on how we're using a native tree called Ado to put water into the ground is allowing us to plant water, or as they'd say in Spanish, para sembrar agua. So sembrar agua means that we're planting the water into the ground, but here we're actually literally doing it with the root structures of a native tree that has been known by the local people for thousands of years to be useful for this purpose. And so it's considered a sacred plant for water holes and a place of preparing the sacred nature of the relationship to surface water supplies, but it also serves this very important ecological function. So I hope this brings you insight and inspiration. And if there's any degraded land where you are, I hope this encourages you to go out and regenerate some of it in your own bioregion.